Hello and welcome to this chapter where I'd like to introduce the French defense and our weapon against it. We'll look at what French defense is, and I'll outline the repertoire that I suggest because it's a pretty big chapter, and I think it's good to take a moment here and make a short video just about the variation I'd like to suggest, and just to outline the options Black has and give you the overview of what we are about to study. On the French is the move e6 after move 1 e4. Black is fighting for the center, prepares to move d5, and after e d5, Black is ready to recapture with the pawn. Very popular opening and a very decent one, but there are some strategical long-term issues with this opening, and after d4, d5, the system that I choose, the advanced variation, move e5, right away highlights these issues. Now the two main issues Black is having here now is lack of space. As you can see in the center, we have already more space here, and the pawn on e5 is a very valuable pawn, controlling that f6 square, not giving the knight this what otherwise would be an ideal square for the knight in the opening. And the other issue that Black is having, that's famously in the French, that is the bad bishop on c8 staring at its own pawn. And even if Black eventually gets to trade that bishop, this whole operation of trading it will cost Black a lot of time, and that will in turn lead to other issues such as lack in development and so on and so forth. Now let's see what Black can do against the e5 system. Now I should also mention the alternatives would be knight d2 and knight c3, and very often after, for example, knight c3 or knight d2, knight f6, white anyway goes e5 and we get a similar structure, but in the advanced variation we get the structure right away. And now c5 is pretty much exclusively played. Black should challenge our strong pawn center, and after c3, this is where we have a big tabia and a moment for Black to choose his path. Now there are two, perhaps three big plans and a bunch of sidelines as always. Now one of the main plans is to play knight c6 followed by queen b6. Queen on b6 is putting pressure on the d4 and the b2 pawn. The other plan is knight c6 and bishop to d7, developing the queen side first. And another very big idea Black has in this position is to trade this bishop on c8, and a very popular way to do that is by bringing the queen out to b6 and then bishop via d7 to b5. And besides that, Black has a bunch of sidelines, as we'll see, connected to the move f6 or early move knight e7, and some others. Now let's look at the system with queen b6, knight c6, knight f3, queen b6. There will be a separate chapter on that. Now the idea of queen b6 is very smart, very clever. Black's putting pressure on the d4 and the b2 pawn, and that's important because by putting pressure on the b2 pawn, Black stops us from developing the c1 bishop. I should say that I had also done lifetime repertoire of French defense for the black pieces, and there I'm recommending the move queen b6. So for this course I had to battle my own course, and I found an interesting new idea which could pose problems to those who bought my other course. So we are a step ahead there. But yeah, the final side, jokes aside, queen b6 remains a critical variation. Now I recommend the main line here with a3. That is a pretty deep idea. Now it's played in a lot of games by now, but it's not the most obvious move. Now we postpone the development of the bishop and the king. Usually in my course in general, I focus on the development, and more often than not, the bishop from f1 gets developed and we castle first before determining our next plans. But in this particular position, a3 is very clever. Now we want to release the tension here between the c5 and d4 pawns as soon as possible by advancing our b2 pawn to b4. We also free up our bishop that can then develop to e3 or b2 usually, and that a3 pawn also covers the b4 square, which sometimes can be useful when the bishop heads over to c2 via d3. So all in all, a very clever move. And now Black has a bunch of options. I'll just mention them here, but they will be covered in a separate chapter. There's bishop d7, there is knight to h6, knight to e7 as well. Both knight moves are aiming at landing the knight on f5. There is also a5 stopping b4, and there is also c takes d4, which I think is quite a poor move. And of course, there is also c4. C4 is my recommendation in my French lifetime repertoire. Position gets closed, knight has to a5, but I'm going to propose an interesting idea connected to the b4 push, so you'll see in that chapter. Now that is for the move queen b6. 5 bishop d7 is another big move. It seems clever for black to first develop the queenside pieces and then determine the kingside pieces later. Here I'd like to recommend bishop e2. Bishop would stand better on the more active diagonal b1 h7, also on d3, but after bishop d3 we are facing some concrete issues. After cd, cd, queen b6, pawn on d4 is attacked, and then if we move the bishop, for example, to c2, the knight b4 could be annoying. So we don't really get the time to consolidate our bishop on this diagonal, so instead I recommend bishop e2. Bishop later can regroup or move onwards to d3. And here, well, big tab ensues, and main move is knight g7, after which I proposed move knight a3. The knight doesn't have the access to c3 square and gets developed by a3 to c2. This is a thematic maneuver, and in the bishop d7 chapter you will see a lot of this, and these positions you will see them analyzed in great detail. So I think the structure of the French defense within this course is pretty clear, and now without further ado, let's go ahead and study the next chapter.